Good afternoon, everyone. It's right around 2 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. A warm welcome to everyone. First item of our agenda is to approve the agenda. I hope everyone's taken a look at it, and if there's no additions or if everyone's happy, I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Moved by Dominique, thank you. Second by Duncan, thank you. Carolyn, please call the vote.
Councillor Giguère.
Yes.
Councillor McPhail.
Yes.
Mike Andrews.
Yes.
Warden Marks.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you, appreciate that. Next item is adoption of the minutes from April 29, 2021. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing any, entertain a motion to approve them, please.
Mike.
Mike, thanks, Mike. By Mike, second by Dominique, thank you. Please call the vote, Carolyn.
Councillor Giguère.
Yes.
Councillor McPhail.
Yes.
Mike Andrews.
Yes.
Warden Marks.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Very good, thank you for that. I'd remind everyone of disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. And looking at everyone, I'd note we have none, thank you. Item 4, Connectivity Committee, analysis of data and local resources. And we've got the IBI group with us. If they're ready, welcome and please go ahead.
All right, thank you and good afternoon. I'm Keith Ponton with IBI Group, and I'll introduce my colleagues Ian Nelson and Jason McBeath, also from IBI Group. In terms of, we have a short presentation for you today to introduce ourselves as well as to provide you with some early findings in our approach to the consulting engagement that we have. In terms of the administration of the meeting, do you want me to share my screen to provide the slides that way, or will they be shared?
Whatever you prefer, Keith.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Just give me a minute to bring it up, and we'll drive the discussion that way. If you could just confirm you're seeing a title slide of the presentation.
Yeah.
Great.
Carolyn, are you able to do it?
I can.
We have a very capable young lady here. There, it's up.
Oh, okay, thank you. Very good. Okay, thank you. If we could just move to the next slide. We'll provide you a brief overview of who we are and what our role is, as well as IBI Group. Talk a bit about objectives and deliverables and a summary of the available information that we have gathered thus far based on our scope of work and our approach to the analysis and next steps. So if we move to the next slide, myself, Keith Ponton, and Ian Nelson, who I introduced, we are co-leading this engagement with Elgin County. And we've brought Jason McBeath here as well. At some point during this presentation, we will have Jason share some of his screen to look at some of the data and have some interaction with the data in more of a live and real-time format. We come to you having worked with many counties and regions, both near and far from you. So we have done work locally in terms of York region, Durham region. We were involved a fair bit with helping Swift construct their business plan and getting them to the point where they are today in terms of securing their funding and rolling out their program throughout many areas in Southwest Ontario. We've also done work in other jurisdictions across the country and certainly understand the nature of both municipal broadband and rural broadband and the challenges that many communities face with the current state of broadband, which of course has been further highlighted by the challenges we all face trying to carry on through the pandemic and through the various work from home and educate from home and trying to do everything from home. So we'll jump right into to some of the work and the approach. IBI Group, we're a company that is a global company headquartered in Toronto with offices across Canada, the US, and internationally. We do focus on in municipal infrastructure, both the traditional infrastructure of planning, design, landscape, civil engineering. Our large part of our firm has an architecture practice where we do both private and public sector architecture. And the intelligence group, which we are all a part of, which adds the intelligence systems, including broadband systems, and work closely with clients to implement those systems and strategies with the clients that we work with. But let's jump into specifically our scope of work here. And really there's 4 areas that we're focusing on, and today we're going to primarily talk about item 1 on the graphic, which is the analysis of data and local resources. So our efforts here are really to establish a current state, and there are many data sources to consider. And Jason will take you through some of those discrete data sources, but we've been quite active in compiling that data, overlaying it on the county, on the geography of the county, and understanding and validating that data. Some important data sets that we'll cover, not to steal too much of Jason's thunder, but there are certain national databases managed by Industry Science and Economic Development, ISED, that paint a picture of where broadband is available and where it isn't, and where the speeds are where there are high-speed services and where there is a lack of high-speed services. That information also comes to us with a picture of internet service providers and where they have shared information. We have specific details on what their infrastructure is. But there's also infrastructure providers who need to be canvassed, and we're always looking to validate the information, ground truth the information, if you like, by outreaching to local ISPs to validate the data, the assumptions, and the services that they either have or are planning to implement within certain areas within the county. So that's all under our point 1 in terms of the analysis of the data and local resources. Building on that, as we work on this project throughout the summer, we'll be developing recommendations based on the data that we find, and we'll be coming back to this committee with those recommendations and an accompanying written report to interact with you, to discuss our findings and allow you an opportunity to provide input and commentary on our work as we move forward. I'll move to the next slide, just slide 6. And I'm going to start talking to this slide, and I'll cue Jason to be ready to share his screen as we move over into the more of the interactive portion of looking at the data. So as I mentioned, we start with many different sources of data. The ISED mapping data is quite important, but we know that in many cases, what ISED thinks is where service is and isn't necessarily, I'll say, 100% accurate. There needs to be that local validation of where the information is um, cross-referenced with some of the data that we've received from the survey that Elgin County has run, and overlaying that on the list of active and planned projects that we've gathered from many different sources, including SWIFT. So the map that we have here, which is one of many that Jason will take you through, depicts at a very high level where there's understood to be fiber optic services available. But this is our starting point to understand where we think service is and isn't available, and to further detail out where various options and technologies are used as part of the broadband infrastructure. So maybe at this point, Jason, I'll ask you to come on and share your screen, and you can take this committee through some of the interactive data layers that we have to work with.
Sure, thanks, Keith. Can everyone see my screen there?
We could, but we're seeing an attribute table, I think, right now.
Okay, just one moment then. Let's try and get on the right screen.
For a brief moment, we saw a map.
Is that the map there yet, or no?
Yes,
It seems to be.
yes, it is coming through now, Jason. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. Thanks, Keith. And thanks everyone for inviting me today and the opportunity to show off your data. So as Keith noted, ISED at a federal level classifies the entire country by these hexagons you can see on the screen. The hexagons represent just geographic regions, and within those hexagons they classify data a few different ways. One of the first ways they do is by internet service providers, ISPs, that operate within the hexagon. So there is a bit of a self-reporting onus on the ISPs. There's a bit of an honor system, and what this tells us is that within this hexagon somewhere an ISP is operating. It could be one customer, it could be more than one customer. There's no real threshold. The ISP is just operating within it. So moving down the list here, there's fairly good representation across the county. The next step will elaborate that on that a little bit further, but you can see Bell operates here. Cogeco Connection has one hexagon down in Dutton Dunwich. Eastlink has a fairly good spread across your region. Execulink has good coverage as well. There's Falcon Internet Services, Quick Internet. There's NFTC, Present. There's Rogers, Tech Savvy, TELUS, and ExploreNet. So when an ISP operates within one of these hexagons, there's a few ways they can deliver services, and ISED captures all of them. So elaborating further, the hexagons are classified by the technologies available within that hexagon. So this represents coaxial cable, traditional cable delivery. We've got DSL, which is copper phone line delivery. We've got fiber to the home, which was represented on Keith's slide. We've got fixed wireless services relating to your radio service, often rural. There's high capacity transport. There's mobile wireless, and there's satellite. So those are all the ISPs, internet service providers, and the technologies that they may be utilizing throughout your county. obviously, there's a lot of information there and a lot of variables. So digging in deeper, ISCD breaks it down to road segments and the speeds associated with the road segment. So this is where we really get into the digestible information. So road segments are approximately 250 meters long. Each road within your county is divvied up, and they're classified by the speeds available on that road segment. So you can see there is under 5 megabits available in some fringe areas, which I've classed as red because that's quite concerning and probably relatively unusable these days. Moving up the map, you can see there's pretty high level coverage of 5 megabit download speed by 1 megabit upload speed. Stacking on top of that, we move up to 10 megabits down by 2 megabits up. And you can see as we progress to the higher speeds, the areas represented get smaller and smaller and generally centralize around your urban areas. So 25 megabits down and 5 megabits up gets quite patchy. And 50 megabits down by 1 megabit up is very limited. Now there is quite a correlation between the technology of fiber to the home and where your 50 by 1 megabit service is represented. Obviously there is differences largely based on probably coaxial technologies and distance from the town of Aylmer, but you can see that starts to show a little bit of correlation. So that's a quick high-level overview of the federal level data and what they say is available in your county. Now, as we move along, we need to attempt to substantiate their claims. So fortunately, Elgin County has undertaken a broadband survey, and we've got some real-world data to attempt to back that up. It's a little busy here. I'm going to leave the road segments up for the moment being, but I'll remove them shortly. So this is the surveys returned from the results returned from your surveys. So the respondents were invited to take a speed test on their computer where they were performing the survey and then manually input their download and upload speeds as tested into the survey. So that's what these results are based on. And you can see we've got red dots at 0 to 7 megabits. This is focusing on download, by the way. We've got orange dots at 8 to 14. We have various shades of peach here, moving through 15 to 21, 22 to 28, 29 to 35, and into the greens at 36 to 42, and 43 to 50 megabits a second. So this data tells us a couple things. One, although your survey was relatively lowly attended at 205 respondents throughout the county that input speed test data, there is quite a good spread. So you can see we're represented across the region, fairly evenly distributed, which is valuable. And we can see that there's quite a few people with limited service. Down at 0 to 7 is concerning, as I mentioned. Even 8 to 14 and 15 to 21 can present challenges definitely in today's work from home climate and school from home climate. Moving from that, I'd like to validate the data of the speed test against what ISCD says is available in the area. So these red X's and red check marks, I'll zoom in to one region here to get a little more granular look at it, show us that I've checked the survey speed test results against what ISCD road segment says is in the area. So if there's a green check mark, the person is getting on download what ISCD says is available in their area. And with the red X, they are not achieving what ISCD says is available in their area. So there's few reasons that could be. There's multiple reasons that could be. Gets difficult at this point to really disseminate the data. Wi-Fi within the home could be a large cause of a reduction of speed in some of these situations. You know, could be poor service, could be technical implications of being connected to the wrong service when you take the speed test, but it does somewhat validate based against the road segments. You see more green check marks, you know, within green areas, showing that people are achieving somewhat of a better speed where better speed is offered, and it correlates against that. Moving off of that, I also have that comparison done for upload speeds to see if they achieved upload speeds. As a summary of your 205 tests performed on download, 120 of them did not meet the ISED road segment parameters that they say is in the area, and 85 did meet on download. And on upload, 95 did not meet the ISED stated road segment speeds, and 110 did meet those upload speeds. So,
Jason, oh, there we go. I was just going to comment that it might have been just me, but we had lost your screen for a second, but you appear to be
oh,
back.
I apologize. I switched to a spreadsheet there, and likely the way I'm sharing the screen lost you there. But
Yeah.
So 50 to 60% are meeting the ISED road segment speeds as listed. But the large caveat to that is that large swaths of your county don't have good speeds listed by ISED. So they're generally underserved. The federal level of 50 megabits download by 10 megabits upload is largely unrepresented in your county. Only the green pathways meet that download speed on the map right now. So correlating the data yet one more way, these dots represented on the screen now are a representation of speed tests that did meet 50 megabits download. So these ones scattered throughout did meet your 50 megabit minimum download speed. You can see the small white numbers. That's the speed test result they achieved on download, with the highest number being 500 over here down in the southern portion. Yet one more consideration on this is the upload speed. So quite a few respondents did meet the download speed. A very select few of these green check marks met both the 50 megabits download and 10 megabits upload speed. So of the federal minimum standards as required, as the target for entirety of Canada, there's 34 respondents of your 205 that actually meet that criteria today in their speed test results. The last piece of data I have to share is shared from Swift, and it's projects on being constructed in your area or being proposed in your area right now. So up here in the north section of Bayham, we have Execulink proposing a project. These projects are largely fiber to the home based right now, although down in the southern section, NFTC is proposing a wireless solution, and you can see based on the shape of the polygon, it's somewhat of a directional wireless solution. So NFTC has the southern portion of West Elgin, and they have this area around Patrick Point here. And then we have ATEL doing a fairly substantial build through this area here. That's a preliminary look at the data we've been consolidating and visualizing and digesting for our report now. And leave it to Keith to continue.
No, thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And I'll just get you to leave your screen up for a second in case there are any questions or comments as we go. Certainly, this data is quite important, both the federal perspective as well as the local survey results, and tying the two together to find to essentially ground truth the information. It becomes very important as we start to develop the strategies and the approaches to solve it, both from a policy and investment and approach level, as well as to identify geographic areas of where exactly the problem needs to be solved and how to prioritize areas that need the most help within the county. So certainly there's, while there is some green on the map, there's certainly green isn't the dominant color. So it confirms likely all the reasons that this committee was put together, and the important focus on improving broadband within the county. So we'll leave it there. I'll perhaps pause for any questions while we've got the live data up. before we move into the final few slides of the formal presentation, and we can take any general questions after that.
Lots of information. Open the floor to our committee. Are there any questions for Keith or Jason?
Sure.
Dominique, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, I seem to recall in previous, a few of us attended a number of conferences on connectivity and rural connectivity. And I seem to recall comments about the hexagon method being essentially useless and unreliable. And so I note that you're still using it as some basis for validation. I'm curious on your view on this data.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Certainly, it is our opinion as well that the hexagon method is outdated, and we were glad to see that ISED moves their data set into road segment network. ISED hasn't completely migrated their entire data set into the road segment network, so the hexagons are a bit of a historical artifact that are another way to look at the data, but certainly agree that our analysis going forward will be based on the road network, which is much more granular.
And Duncan, I believe you had your hand up as well.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. Now, you're basing a lot of this data on surveys, and I don't know how much faith that you put into surveys, because if it was a internet request on surveys, there'd be a lot of people wouldn't even be able to respond to it because they don't have enough service to even know it's there. So, I think the only real way that you're going to determine in a municipality who has service and what type of service they have and are they satisfied with it is boots on the ground, knocking on doors and asking specific questions to our residents. Then you'll get a true sampling of exactly what is there and how well it's working.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly in locations where there's absolutely no service, where the ISED data and other data sources certainly quickly point that out. So there's certainly methods to validate that. Our current scope of work that doesn't have us knocking on every door, but really the emphasis here is a bit more on how to solve the problem. We can, if we're fairly comfortable, and I suggest we should be, that some of the green areas are probably okay and a lesser priority. It allows us to focus on areas where we don't see the color green. Quite frankly, even 5010 service now is considered a minimum standard. So we would encourage the county, and our solutions will have you aim much higher than just the minimum standard of 5010 in putting those solutions forward. We know that there is some basic level of service available through satellite-based services as well as fixed wireless services. But those services, for the most part, are not usable, from a modern economy point of view. They're just too slow and too expensive, typically. So we didn't want to place a heavy emphasis on going door to door. If you like, we can, we understand that there's a problem, and this will, the map will help us prioritize the solutions that we develop.
I don't think that my intention was for IBI to take on that role of going door to door. That's fairly labor intensive, but certainly I know we've discussed it at our municipality that when the opportunity arises that there are summer students available, it's something that I would like to have for my municipality of West Elgin, a real true picture of what service is and what service people are getting, and what their satisfaction level is. If they are receiving service, is it adequate? or if they have none at all, what's the reason why? And so I'm certainly not suggesting that IBI take on that role.
Fair enough. I would comment that what we're seeing as best practice is that that there be an ongoing process to constantly keep a pulse on speed and service availability. And for the most part, there are tools to do that in an online format. Admittedly, the online tools, of course, don't allow us to pick up the residences that have absolutely no service and are not participating in the online economy or don't have the ability to report back on speed, but there are certainly tools on an ongoing basis to capture that information and record your progress over time in a certain geography. We can certainly discuss that as part of some of the recommendations we develop. I will also comment that in other jurisdictions where we work, there is a much larger discrepancy between what the federal government database says is available for service and what residents on the ground are reporting. And in many cases, the federal database data overstates service. And there is somewhat of an incentive through the honor system for the service providers to overstate service. So it's very important when you want to apply for federal or provincial grants to help solve the problem that you have reliable data that reflects the conditions on the ground and not necessarily what a database is reflecting back to you.
I have a comment from Jeff Brock, sorry, our IT director. Jeff, go ahead.
So I think that was that concern is something we've discussed in our subcommittee as well, and we can definitely take that back and provide an update and a solution for that, such as direct mail out and things like that. So it's something we can discuss and maybe bring back to the group.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question. Keith, I think I know the answer to this question, but IBI is not assuming that the green is necessarily green, and I hope, and that's what I'm hearing.
No, we're definitely not assuming that, and we're looking at the survey data that was obtained through the locally initiated surveys to validate that information.
Right, and just if I can just home in on one little area that I'm intimately familiar with. Bayham shows an enormous amount of green that is actually based on a proposed project as opposed to something that's either done or even active. And I live in that area, by the way, as well. So, but in the municipality of Bayham, the concentrated communities such as Stratfordville, Vienna, Burwell, that's probably accurate because Eastlink has coaxial services in all of those communities. But any of the roads in between those communities and anything west of Stratfordville, where Mike lives, up to the community of Richmond, there is absolutely no fiber service in that area. There was a project started over a year ago that has been stalled since March of last year and shows no sign of starting up again. And that construction was strictly Stratfordville North. So I'm concerned that there's a general assumption, not just by IBI, but within the funding programs, that's all serviced area, and that is absolutely not true.
I think in just looking at zoomed in on that area, I think your statement is proven out by your service,
Red dots, yeah.
the red dots along the portions of the road segment connecting those communities.
Yeah, I'll jump in there as well. I'd agree, and that's great validation. Thank you for that, Mike. Exactly as Keith just said, you can see we've got red dots scattered in these rural areas, and you get to the urban centers and you're getting much better speed results. So absolutely, we never assume any of this data is 100% accurate and use it as sort of broad strokes to paint what it may look like out there in your community.
Yeah, so I mean, it allows us to, in our sort of ground truth view, to color some of the green as not green, based on the local survey results. And just by the local knowledge of the way that networks are built, they are typically built to serve the most densely populated areas. Of course, there's connectivity running in between, but if the service provider didn't make provisions to serve people along the way, then those services don't exist.
Yeah, and as we know, traditionally, that's exactly how the telecom network was built. Fiber interconnected the central offices, and there was no thought to serving customers along the way. So I think
Yes,
the
yeah.
green is actually fairly accurate across the rest of the county, but I know it absolutely is not in Bayham. So
Right,
thanks for
right.
that.
No, that's fair. So thank you. That validation is important, and certainly when we look countywide, we tend to paint solutions with fairly broad strokes. So we will certainly take that input in consideration.
Further comments, Duncan?
Yeah, when some of this data is being put together now, is that information that the government or whoever picks up from the service providers that are in the area, and they're telling the government that this is and if you look at any of the ads, it will tell you up to a certain level of speed. And it's sort of like promising everybody a ham sandwich when you get the sandwich and no ham in it, and there's not much anybody can do about it. So I'm just wondering if this data is again. I appreciate the fact that you're actually testing areas to make sure that this is what the speed is, and I think that you'll find that a lot of the as advertised certainly does not meet what reality is.
Yeah, I would agree. Certain service providers, I'll say, stretch their capability with their marketing material far more than what their network delivers. So there is, it is a problem in the industry overall in terms of relying on what advertised services and speeds are. The and agree. We share your skepticism, I guess, in terms of looking at this with a more of a pessimistic view when we start to formulate solutions.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, with regards to validating some of these areas, if there are areas of concern, we can go out, the IT team here from the county can go out and validate and complete some of these tests ourselves to validate some of the areas that are in question, so.
Sounds like a good idea. Further comments? Doesn't look like it, Keith. Carry on.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll switch back to the PowerPoint presentation if I could. There's just a few more slides to go there. Thank you. So we're also in the process of compiling various metrics and other data points that will help us formulate recommendations. So the image that you see on the screen is the data set that identifies radio communication towers within the county. Certainly, as we start to formulate what the solutions could be and what the architecture of those solutions are, the radio tower infrastructure is important, as well as defining where exactly the population is, where the dwellings are, and understanding the land use, both planned areas of development and how the land is being actively used and zoned. So we're just starting down the path of our analysis, and we're continuing to compile and synthesize the information. And the next step, when you will see us back, is at the formulation of options stage in terms of looking at how to solve the problem from a policy and investment and grant from senior levels of government perspective, as well as where to solve the problem geographically within the county and what areas are in need of a prioritized approach and where those solutions should be directed towards. So there are many different approaches, and I can say consistently almost every county finds the approach that suits their unique needs, both in terms of the ability to fund or co-fund solutions, as well as the urgency needed to solve the problem and the priority within the county to drive it forward. So this is the last slide of the formal presentation. Certainly appreciate the questions that we've had thus far, and we'll again throw the floor open to additional questions before we wrap up.
Keith, Jason, thank you for the presentation. And I will open the floor to questions. I'm excited. We know we have problems, but we're looking at ways to get them. Duncan, go ahead.
Just a little bit about the process. Now, is it IBI's vision to have the IT department at the county be part and parcel of the information gathering? Does the county IT department, are they going to communicate directly with the individual municipalities to get their input and their knowledge of what is actually happening on the ground? How do we, are we going to make the decisions at a high view? Are we going to try to do our best to gather up the grassroots information the best of our ability? Or have we thought about that into it that far?
So I can speak to that a bit.
Yeah, go
Sure,
ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so we will be involved absolutely with IBI, and we will be communicating back and gathering all that information and moving it between IBI and the committee and that sort of stuff. So absolutely, we'll be involved. Yes.
Julie?
Just to build on that, we have had at least weekly meetings with IBI and appreciate their support. And there's a lot of open conversations between IT, engineering, and other departments in the county. As well, we've begun the engagement process with our local municipal partners. So the CAOs have been made aware of this project and can anticipate our team reaching out to them to gather localized data and to connect us with any ISPs who are currently undertaking work in the area or who have identified prospective projects within those municipalities. So this really will be a team effort, recognizing the importance of this project for County Council and for the committee and from the staff perspective as well. We're putting all of our energy into providing the best product coming out of IBI as possible, and one that will work for our local municipal partners with localized solutions, and one that will work for the county as a whole. We missed that. You are muted.
Were you, the whole thing?
Further comments, I think is what we're saying, sorry.
I thought the whole thing was, I just said, are there any further comments? But I guess we were muted, so. No. All right, well, like I said, I'm excited. We've been waiting to get Jeff on board and our group of talent and roll our sleeves up and continue on. The public are waiting on us. Certainly, this is a priority of our council. Duncan, go ahead.
Just, is there been any timeline put on when our county staff and IBI and the CEOs and everybody else will be coming back with what is the game plan moving forward?
Jeff?
Ian, did you want to speak or Jeff?
Well, I believe the first report is we're hoping to bring that back for the around July 22nd, in that timeframe. If we are able to schedule a follow-up meeting, connectivity meeting, that would be report number 1, I think.
Okay. So we are not stopping, we're continuing on. So that's the message.
Absolutely.
Good. Everyone happy with that? Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for the presentation today. Do we need them to stay with us or? Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you.
Very good, thank you. We're looking
Nice.
forward to continuing our work with you.
Likewise. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Move on to correspondence, and it looks like we have none, although it has been brought to my attention, nearby Chatham-Kent Mayor Caniff has got an article in our local paper. The wholesaling of internet, the way I take it, is drastically changed, and it's certainly hurting the small ISPs. I've heard from my local one, Uplink, very upset. This is quoting Tech Savvy. Is everyone aware of this or not? Maybe we should have a discussion on it. And I'm suggesting it may be appropriate to send some letters of support, or whether it goes back to county council or comes from us to county council and then send on. But if anyone has some thoughts or wants to hear more about it. Mike, you must be aware of this.
Yes, I am aware of it. It's not a black and white issue either. I think that for the committee's benefit, it's regarding the large carriers, and for our area that would be Rogers Bell's wholesale arrangements. Eastlink, by the way, has no wholesale business, so it has no impact really on the east end of the county, I guess, if you will. But the primary impact of this is going to be not so much on new services coming available, although I think probably many providers would make an argument that it'll take capital out of the system and will have that ultimate effect. But it's about resale, so it's more about the competitive environment as opposed to the actual availability environment, in my view. So if you're an ISP that's reselling a Bell or a Rogers product, then obviously the Bell or Rogers network has to be in place to do that. So where areas where that network doesn't exist or service doesn't exist, it really will have no impact on service availability, other than, as I've already said, if it has the potential to take capital out of the entire system so that companies won't necessarily continue to build their own infrastructure, their own facilities, or even contemplate Swift applications, that type of thing with those rates. Many of those companies revenues are based on the resale as opposed to revenue coming off of facilities of their own. So it's not a black and white issue. It's complex. What kind of an impact that will have on Elgin and our need to even get connectivity out, I don't think it's all that critical myself.
Am I oversimplifying it if I say it's going to make it harder for the small ISPs?
No, I don't think so. But it will make it ISPs to provide services over, again, Bell and Rogers network, as opposed to those that are actually building their own infrastructure. This decision, I don't believe anyway, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am, that this decision doesn't impact access to backbone services by those providers. It's strictly retail wholesale rates that have been impacted.
Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warren. Through to you, to Mike. Because of that resale, when a smaller ISP signs a customer up, is that one of the reasons that the overall speeds maybe are slowing down, and some of them have limits on how much data you can use, so that they are trying to limit the amount of money that they're paying to the wholesalers for resale to get maximum return off everybody's monthly hookup?
No, I don't think so, Duncan. It certainly affects price, but as far as the actual quality and product itself, it shouldn't have really an impact on that. But it absolutely will have an impact on price to the consumer. So it is very much a competitive issue for sure.
Cecil, do you have an opinion on this?
Sort of the same mindset as Mike. My understanding is wholesale access, if you're giving backbone access, isn't affected. It really is the really small ISPs who are purchasing service directly. I think of an example in West Elgin that Duncan knows. He's buying services from a local ISP directly. It's not a wholesale service, and I know he's paying a substantial price for it. Somebody like him will be affected, but Uplink, as the example, I believe he does have a wholesale connection with Rogers, so it shouldn't affect him as much.
So is that something we just need to stay tuned to? So we're aware of it and monitor it? Okay, I'm seeing some heads nod. Let's move on to new business. Do we have any, or anyone have an item to bring up? Not seeing any. Date of next meeting?
I think we were hoping for July 22nd.
That fit most calendars, July 22nd? And we'll go with Julie?
Unless there is a need from the committee's perspective to check in and on some of the ways that we're validating data, or if the committee has a desire for more information before you receive the first report, we'd be happy to bring the committee back and share more information. Perhaps in 2 weeks rather than a month.
What's your desire?
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, it could be a quick check-in. Doesn't have to be a long meeting, but yeah, I think the opportunity to check in would be great.
All right, so that would be July 8th?
Are you back 13th?
I'm back the week of the 13th, yes. Maybe the following week would be better for me anyways. I'm actually out of the office the week of the 8th.
Okay, so that'd be 1 week earlier. The 15th? Which is, we're in the second part of June already, it's hard to believe. 15th of July? And we'll go with the same 2 o'clock? Does that work? All right. Further comments before we adjourn? I think we're making progress, so if there's nothing further, I want to thank everyone for your time and attention, so enjoy the rest of the day. Take care. We are adjourned. I don't need a mover.